Hello, hello, Regis Kilbin is the name, and Heroes of the Storm is the game, and today I'm going to be talking about my general purpose Zealot Artanis build. The Zealot Artanis is really just kind of your default go-to build for Artanis. It's a Bruiser style warrior. He's good at doing damage, but not totally sacrificing all of his defensive talent. So it's kind of a middle-of-the-ground build that allows you to do some pretty cool things, secure some kills from time to time, add up damage, but still has a couple defensive talents so that you aren't just totally dying at the cost of doing a little bit of extra damage. So this will be the kind of default or go-to build for most of the games you're in, and I think you'll find it is the highest and most successful win rate of all Artanis builds, according to what the community has seen so far. So I want to break down all the talents in the Zealot build real quickly for those of you who are a little impatient want to try this out. Starting at level 1, we're going to go with Reactive Parry. Level 4 is Lethal Alacrity. Level 7, Psionic Synergy. Level 10, Purifier Beam. Level 13, Triple Strike. Level 16, Zealot Charge, the talent which gives this build its name. And finally, at level 20, Nexus Blades. So now, if you would, let's go ahead and run through each of these talents in a little bit more detail and discuss what they do and why they're important for Artanis. So, level 1, Reactive Parry. This is a Twin Blade buff, basically, that anytime you activate Twin Blades, it reduces the damage received from the next hero basic attack by 50%, and you can store up to 2 charges. So this is Artanis' version of Block. It's not a default passive talent quite like Block. It does require activation of your W, but if you play Artanis much, you'll know that your W is constantly being activated and has a very short cooldown. So Reactive Parry actually can be a little bit better than Block because it's actually triggering quite often every 4 seconds. So it's a really solid talent that allows you to get in melee range of tanks and scary melee assassins like, say, the Butcher or Thrall, and not completely sacrifice yourself too quickly, giving you that extra few seconds you might need to lock down a kill or chunk away at the enemy squishy's health pool. So a nice little defensive talent based on an offensive ability. At level 4, we're going to do Lethal Alacrity. This increases Blade Dash's range and speed by 30%. This is your Q ability where you dash forward and dash back. This talent allows you to essentially go, it's a lot farther, frankly. It's significantly farther, allowing you to do cool things like go all the way up to a gate, and you can almost reach, in fact, you can reach the enemy's fort with Blade Dash. So it gives you more range when trying to secure a kill from somebody who might be running away in lane in the early game, because this is a level 4 talent. But it also just gives you a higher area of effect, impact in team fights in the late game. You're more likely to hit more people because you're going farther, and the actual area, surface area you're affecting is larger. So the speed also means that you're less susceptible to attacks while you're up there, because you can take damage or be stunned while you're dashing, so it makes you a little bit harder to hit and exposes you a little bit less while you're dashing. So there are quite a few advantages to the speed and range increase here on Lethal Alacrity. And Blade Dash is not necessarily an ability you're going to be using constantly in team fights, but it's good enough, often enough, that this talent increase is worth it compared to everything else in this tier. At level 7, we're going to go with Psionic Synergy. Every time Blade Dash hits an enemy hero, it reduces your Shield Overload's cooldown by 4 seconds. So Shield Overload, of course, is Artanis' trait. Anytime he's below 50% health, he gets a nice hefty shield added on to help keep him alive, which you'll see here in a second. There it is. And what this talent does is anytime your Q hits a person, an enemy hero specifically, that 20-second cooldown has 4 seconds taken off. So you can also reduce this cooldown with basic attacks. Between basic attacks and the Psionic Synergy cooldown reductions, your Shield Overload can be going on pretty much constantly in team fights. If you hit 3 or 4 heroes with Psionic Synergy's buff Blade Dash, you're going to take off 12 to 16 seconds in cooldown. So every time you're able to Blade Dash multiple people, you're almost guaranteeing yourself a shield instantly or very near instantly, giving you some significant extra survivability and it can be on command in a sense, because you can wait to use your blade dash until you might need to reduce that cooldown really quickly and proc that shield. So if you're skilled and mindful of your shield and the cooldown on it, Psionic Synergy gives you another tool to take advantage of that. At level 10, we're going to go with Purifier Beam. This is pretty much a strictly damage and zoning kind of ultimate. Let's get Arthas in here to show it off. It will drop a beam on Arthas' head that moves very slowly and follows the character. So if he stands still, he's going to take a lot of damage, but if he moves, he may be able to escape it. Normal movement speed for heroes does allow them to get out of this beam, but it's pretty much guaranteed to get a couple hits if they don't have an immediate escape ability. And it's a nice zoning tool, because if you put it on the tank in the front line, he might have to separate himself. You can essentially scoot people off of an objective if that Purifier Beam is hanging anywhere near it. And the damage is nice too, because Artanis is not really a pure tank. He is a bruiser that does have to contribute some damage to team fights to be successful. So you can't ignore the damage aspect at all. It does tons of damage and can cause some chaos as well. Purifier Beam's a really strong heroic. I was undervaluing it originally, but I've turned around and I love it a lot now. At level 13, we're going to go with Triple Strike. Twin Blades, number of basic attacks is increased to 3, so Twin Blades is our W ability. It gives us a nice little buff to our basic attacks and makes them hit very quickly. And now instead of doing 2 extra ones, we get to do 3 extra ones. It reminds me a lot of Thrall's Wind Fury, essentially, when he gets that Triple Strike effect at level 16. And it's really just as good, or maybe even better in a sense, because it has a very short cooldown. So Triple Strike is what enables Artanis to do tons of damage, ridiculous amounts of damage, and surprise bursts. You notice we were hitting for almost 300, meaning that a full auto attack and Triple Strike rotation is 1200 damage on the enemy opponent, which is quite a bit when most people only have around 400 health or 4,000 health, excuse me, on average. So this is where Artanis really does turn into kind of that scary pseudo-assassin type warrior that can pump out insane damage. At level 16, we're going to go with Zealot Charge. Twin Blades causes you to charge. So let's get some enemies in here. You'll notice when I activate my Twin Blades, I get this nice little blue indicator around me. This is the charge range that Twin Blades allows you to do. So if I attack, you notice I jumped in there. This is very reminiscent of the Zealots in StarCraft 2, which is the name of this talent, and in fact, the name of this build. So shouldn't be too surprised by that. The reason this talent is so good is because Artanis has a very short auto attack range. He has the shortest auto attack range in the game, along with a couple other heroes. So he can't reach quite as far as someone like a Kerrigan or a Chen. There are a number of other heroes. He's very limited. He's the same as Muradin, essentially. And he needs Zealot Charge in order to close the gap on certain fleeing heroes. Otherwise, he just cannot stick and do enough damage to finish them off. So without Zealot Charge, you're going to find yourself always 2 or 3 steps away from the person that you need to engage or kill. And that's not only annoying, it's inefficient and frankly quite bad. It's going to cost you team fights and cost you kills and cost you wins in the long run. So without Zealot Charge, it's very, very difficult to play Artanis well in team fights. A Jaina simply stepping away and not being completely predictable in her movements will mean you never quite get to her unless you have Zealot Charge. If you do have Zealot Charge, you're going to lock her down and kill her very quickly once those Twin Blades, or in fact Triple Strike, hits. She'll be dead in no time. So Zealot Charge is kind of, to me, a defining talent for Artanis. It's so hard to work well without him. But when you have all those other tools buffing your Twin Blades, and then you finally get this, which allows you to really secure those hits, it makes you a scary threat. So before 16, I honestly have a little bit of trouble playing Artanis comfortably. But once 16 arrives, I feel much happier in team fights and feel like I'm contributing pretty significant damage. And finally, at level 20, we're going to go with Nexus Blades. We have a lot of things to buff our auto attacks throughout this build, and Nexus Blades just contributes to that with a 20% extra damage buff on auto attacks. But you'll also notice that it has a slow for 1 second. So anytime your auto attacks hit, you do slow the enemy hero, which, as I just discussed with Zealot Charge, can be very helpful for closing the distance. Otherwise, they just can walk away because your auto attack range is just so short. So between that slow activating on every attack and Zealot Charge activating when your Twin Blades is active, you should have far less trouble reaching people and sticking to them to actually get your damage across. So there you have it. That is the Zealot Artanis build. I'm going to run through the talents one more time. Reactive Parry, Lethal Alacrity, Psionic Synergy, Purifier Beam, Triple Strike, Zealot Charge, and finally Nexus Blades. This allows Artanis to play almost like an assassin that does lots of damage and locks people down, but he still has that survivability thanks to Shield Overload. So he's a really fun bruiser, kind of in the Sonya mold, not even really an Arthas. He's really more like Sonya, and that's how you should play him. Don't try to be a tank with this build, but do try to be an off-tank and maybe even a pseudo-assassin with the Zealot Artanis build, and I think you'll have quite a bit of luck. This is a super fun hero to play, and this build is in my opinion, probably the most fun way to play him. Not just because you're winning more, but it has some cool charging and teleporting and fun stuff like that. So I hope you do enjoy the Zealot Artanis build. Thanks very much for watching, and until next time, game on.